The city lights glowed between the tall buildings. But Daniel felt nothing inside except a deep, heavy silence. 5 years had passed since he last stepped into this city. The same city where he had seen his mother Grace for the last time. Standing outside the airport, he paused. People rushed around him, taxis honked, announcements echoed. But Daniel heard only one voice. Danny, come back one day. Remember, the doors of home never truly close. But Daniel hadn't returned. Her death had broken him. And after breaking, he had run far away from the place that reminded him of her. Today, for the first time, he was back in New York without his mother. He sat inside the taxi, heart trembling. The driver asked, "Where to, sir?" Daniel quietly handed him a small slip of paper. The address written on it felt like a knife in his chest. 43rd Street, apartment 5B. His childhood home. The last place he had seen his mother alive. The last door he ever closed behind him. As the taxi moved through the city, Daniel stared out the window. Memories slipped back like an old film. His mother's laughter. Her warm meals. Her soft voice waking him every morning. He swallowed harder. Standing before the old apartment, he froze. The building looked older than he remembered. Paint peeling off the walls. Cracked steps, rusted railings. But in Daniel's eyes, it still held the glow of 1,000 memories. Memories only a son could understand. Slowly, he climbed the stairs and stopped in front of apartment 5B. The door. The same brown wooden door. His mother used to open every morning and say, "Danny, life will always give you new doors. Never be afraid to open them." His hands trembled as he reached out and touched the doorknob. For a moment, it felt like he was touching his mother's hand again. And then the door gently opened on its own. Inside was darkness, empty silence, and the familiar scent of memories long buried. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Cold wind swept through the streets of New York. The apartment was dark, quiet, and strangely cold. Daniel stepped inside slowly, each footstep echoing through the empty room. Dust covered the furniture, and faint sunlight slipped through broken blinds. It felt like time had stopped the day he left. He ran his fingers across the old wooden table. This was where his mother Grace used to sit every evening with her tea, waiting for him to come home from school. His throat tightened. As he walked further, something caught his eye. A small brown box placed on the shelf near the window. The same box his mother always kept locked. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. He carefully lifted it and sat on the floor. The box opened with a soft click. Inside were an old photograph of him hugging Grace, his childhood drawings, a dried rose, and a white envelope. The envelope had his name written on it. "To my Danny." His breath stopped. His hands shook as he lifted the letter. It felt heavy, not by weight, but by emotion. He sat silently for several minutes, staring at his name. Finally, he opened it. The letter, "My Danny, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't say these words to you myself. I know life has been hard on you. I know you're angry. And I know you blame yourself for many things you shouldn't. But listen to me once, my son. You were never the reason for my pain. You were always the reason for my strength. If someday you leave this home because your heart feels too heavy, come back when you're ready. This door, this home, and my love, none of it will ever close on you. Life will give you many doors to open, Danny. Just don't lose the courage to try. With all my love, Mom, Grace." The letter shook in his hands. Tears slipped down his cheeks silently. For the first time in years, he cried like a child. He wanted to hear her voice again. He wanted one more hug, one more day, one more chance. As he wiped his tears, he felt something else inside the box, a small silver key. He picked it up. A tag was attached. "For the door you still need to open." Daniel stared at the key, confused and trembling. Which door? The apartment door? A storage room? Something else from the past? Before he could think more, he heard a sudden knock on the apartment door. Daniel froze. No one was supposed to know he was back. Slowly, he stood up and walked toward the door. He opened it and saw someone he never expected. Daniel's heart was pounding as he stared at the figure at the door. It was a woman. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes were the same warm eyes that Grace had always trusted. "Daniel?" she asked softly, almost whispering. Who are you?" Daniel's voice trembled. The woman smiled faintly, holding a small stack of papers. "My name is Margaret. I was your mother's friend. She asked me to deliver something to you if she couldn't." Daniel's throat tightened. He felt a mix of anger, sorrow, and confusion. He wanted to shut the door, but some part of him, The part that still longed for his mother, wanted to listen. Margaret stepped inside carefully. "I'm sorry, Daniel." "I know this is sudden," she said, placing the papers on the table. "These are letters your mother wrote over the years. She never sent them, but she wanted you to have them one day. She wanted you to know the truth about everything." Daniel picked up the first letter. The handwriting was familiar, Grace's gentle, looping letters. Margaret continued softly. "Your mother never wanted you to feel guilty for leaving, or for any mistakes you think you made. There are things about your father, things you need to know." Daniel froze. He had blocked those memories of his father leaving, of anger, of confusion. For years he had blamed himself, thinking he could have fixed it. Margaret handed him the next letter. In it, Grace explained everything. How she had tried to hold the family together. How she had waited for Daniel to come home. How she had hidden her illness, wanting him to focus on his dreams. And finally, how she had wanted him to forgive himself and live fully. Daniel sank into the couch, tears streaming down his face. The apartment, once so empty and cold, felt alive again, filled with his mother's words, her love, and the truth he had needed for years. Margaret smiled gently. "She believed in you, Daniel. Even when you left, she never stopped believing." Daniel picked up the small silver key from the box. He realized now, it wasn't just a key for a physical door. It was a key to unlocking his own heart, to let go of the past and finally forgive himself. He stood holding the key tightly. Outside the window, the city lights of New York flickered like tiny stars. For the first time in years, Daniel felt a strange sense of peace and the courage to face the doors that awaited him. Daniel held the small silver key tightly, staring at the old apartment door once again. Margaret had already left, leaving him alone with his mother's letters and memories. He took a deep breath and walked slowly toward a section of the apartment he had never noticed as a child, a narrow door at the far end of the hallway. It was plain, unmarked, almost hidden behind a faded curtain. His hands trembled as he inserted the key into the lock. Click. The door creaked open, revealing a small, dimly lit room. Dust hung in the air, and a faint smell of old paper and lavender filled the space. Inside, Daniel saw stacks of journals neatly arranged on a shelf, boxes labeled with dates and small notes. A small wooden chest in the corner. It was a secret room, one his mother had kept hidden from everyone, even him. He stepped inside, heart pounding. The journals were all in Grace's handwriting. He opened the first one, flipping through pages filled with thoughts, memories and messages meant only for him. Stories of his childhood she had never told him, her struggles raising him alone, her fears about his father, and a love so deep it made Daniel ache. Then he opened the wooden chest. Inside was a photo album, but not just photos. There were letters addressed to his father, unopened. Letters explaining everything, Grace's life, sacrifices, and reasons for choices Daniel had never understood. As Daniel read, tears blurred his vision. He realized that his mother had lived a life of quiet strength, hiding her pain to protect him. The anger he had carried for years began to dissolve, replaced by understanding and gratitude. Among the papers, he found one last envelope. It was addressed to him in Grace's familiar handwriting. "Danny, when you open this, you will understand why I hid some things. I wanted you to grow strong, and now it's your turn to carry forward the love and courage I left behind." Daniel clutched the letter, feeling a strange warmth in his chest. For the first time in years, he understood. The doors his mother had asked him to open were not just physical. They were doors to truth, forgiveness, and love. He sat on the floor, surrounded by her memories, and whispered, "Mom, I'm finally ready." Outside, the New York skyline glowed in the evening light, as if celebrating his journey of healing. The apartment was silent, except for the soft rustle of pages as Daniel closed the last journal. For hours, he had sat in the hidden room, reading, crying, and finally understanding the depth of his mother's love. A knock on the main door startled him. This time it wasn't Margaret. He opened the door slowly and saw a man standing there. His face was familiar yet aged by years. Michael, his father. "Daniel." Michael's voice cracked almost a whisper. "I didn't expect to find you here. Or maybe I hoped I would." Daniel froze. His heart raced with a mix of anger, fear, and longing. "Why now?" he asked, voice trembling. "After all these years? After everything?" Michael took a deep breath. "I should have been there. I should have never left. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes. But Grace, your mother, She never stopped believing in you. She asked me to find you if anything happened to her. And I finally did. Daniel looked down, the letters and journals still in his hands. He remembered the pain, the nights of anger and loneliness. But he also remembered his mother's words, her love and her courage. I read everything, Daniel said quietly. I understand now why she made the choices she did. I understand why you left, and I understand why she loved us both so much. Michael stepped closer, holding out his hand. I don't expect forgiveness overnight, son. But I want to be here for you, if you let me. Daniel hesitated, then slowly took his father's hand. Tears rolled down his cheeks, but this time they were tears of release. For the first time in years, he felt a part of himself heal. They sat together in the living room, surrounded by the memories of Grace, the woman who had held the family together, even when they were apart. Daniel finally felt the warmth of family again, not just through memories, but in the presence of the father he had longed to understand. Outside, the New York skyline sparkled in the night, and Daniel whispered softly, "Mom, we're finally okay. We're finally home." The morning sunlight streamed through the broken blinds, casting golden stripes across the apartment. Daniel stood by the window, looking at the New York skyline, feeling the weight of the past slowly lift from his shoulders. The letters, journals, and memories of Grace had changed him. He had faced his pain, forgave his father, and reconnected with the pieces of his life he thought were lost forever. But there was still one door left, the door his mother had often talked about. The last door. Daniel walked toward the old apartment door, the same one that had opened when he first returned. He held the silver key in his hand, the key that had unlocked the hidden room, the letters and the truths of the past. He placed the key into the lock one final time. Click. He opened the door slowly and stepped outside. The city greeted him with its usual chaos, its honking, its lights, and its endless rhythm. But Daniel no longer felt lost. He felt ready. He realized that the last door wasn't a physical door. It was the door to life, to moving forward, to embracing love and memories without being trapped by regret. Michael appeared beside him. You ready? His father asked gently. Daniel nodded, a soft smile breaking across his face. For the first time in years, yes. I'm ready. Together, they walked down the street, past the apartment, past the memories, carrying Grace's love in their hearts. As they disappeared into the bustling city, Daniel whispered quietly, "Thank you, Mom, for showing me how to open doors." The camera of the story pans upward to the skyline. The sun rises fully now, casting warmth on the city, a symbol of hope, new beginnings, and the power of family